Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable Behavior Explained. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to Adaptable. I'm your host, Kelly O'Horo, and today we're going to talk about a topic in a season that is both beautiful and can be heartbreaking, which is parenting adult children. I've had another episode on parenting adult children, but this one is going to dig in a little bit in a different way. So, have you ever watched your grown children make choices that you wouldn't, or felt your hands ache to protect them from their decisions, or wondered how to stay close without holding on too tight? Then this is the show for you. Parenting doesn't end when our kid turns 18. It transforms, and the role that we once held as their guide and our language being more directive and in control because of our role as a protector, it shifts. We're no longer the authority, but we're still the one that would take the bullet for them or take their pain without a single ounce of hesitation. And so our love doesn't change. And I found this book called Doing Life with Your Adult Children by Jim Burns that I thought was so great. And it offers 9 principles that'll help us navigate this new terrain. And personally speaking, all of my children are adults. And I have different relationships with all of them, depending on, proximity, energy, timing of things, and their developmental stages and how that has changed. So I've got a lot of personal experience with this. And I can say that when I was first a parent of adult children, I did not know how to let go of the desire to control because my fear was too profound, and I just wanted to protect them from every potential pitfall that maybe they didn't see, and it alienates. And so we want to navigate this together, and we want to remain a resource for them. And so we've got to be thoughtful about how we enter this territory. And so please know that if you are a parent entering this phase, it is hard. It's going to challenge you, and you're going to have to dig deep to let go. So I love this book, like I said, and the first tenet is keep your mouth shut unless asked. So remember, unsolicited advice is usually taken as criticism. And if we aren't asked our opinion, then they don't necessarily want it. And oftentimes, frankly, they probably know what we think. And so they're not going to ask until they're ready to hear that. So you have to practice restraint, and you have to let your adult child make up their own mind and make their own decisions. And sometimes the most loving thing is to listen and let them figure it out. Let them learn their own way and have their oown consequences. Because ultimately, if they don't learn from inside of them, they're just focused on this external locus of control. In other words, they want to please us as parents and still seek our approval. And then it's not coming from inside of them. So it's not in their best interest or in our best interest to continue to offer unsolicited advice. In fact, if you have advice you want to give, it's really best to say, I have some thoughts on this. Are you open to them? Or if you are, let me know and we can talk about it. And that way you have an invitation to offer your feedback and also a listener that's really looking to hear that. And so another thing that is one of the tenets from this book is keeping the welcome mat out always, which is unconditional love and acceptance, regardless of their choices, regardless of the disagreements, regardless of whatever they're doing. You want to make sure that your door is always open for them. And when we don't take responsibility for their choices, it's a lot easier to show up with love and acceptance for their choices, and ultimately compassion with maybe the outcome. And even if we saw it coming, we can still have compassion because they have to learn their lessons on their own. We can't learn all of them for them. And think about it. You got to learn your lessons on your own. Your parents didn't get to live your life. And so it's only fair that they then get their chance to live their life the way that they want to. So your door is open, your heart is open, no matter what, even if you really don't like their choices. And this can be hard. But ultimately, you will not be able to be a person that they come to if you don't show that unconditional love and acceptance. You've got to redefine your role. You've got to shift from parenting and authority to kind of more mentor or consultant. Your relationship is now an adult-to-adult relationship. We need to start seeing them more as a friend, as opposed to someone that we're in charge of or that we're responsible for. And we don't have to have an opinion about what they do, and they don't have to care about what our opinion is. And so our role changes. And you're moving from the director or orchestrator of their life to the ally. And that's actually a gift. And what I recognized in my learning and transitioning from this is it's not that the fear goes away, but it's that you let go of the need to control the choices. And there's a lot of freedom in that. There's a lot of freedom in going, they've got it. They'll be okay. They'll figure it out. And I'll be here if they have a hard time with it. And that changes your role to be more in connection and more allyship than over judgment or condemnation or criticism. And of course, anytime we're met with criticism or condemnation, we push people away. And that's counter to what you really want as the parent, right? You want them to want to remain in connection and friendship with you as they age. At least that's what I want. Also, we've got to look at setting healthy boundaries. So where you might have stepped in to help more when they were younger, this is where they've got to learn to scramble and struggle and have a little bit of strife. And learning to help without enabling is a tricky line. It's hard to figure that out. You want to encourage responsibility. You want to encourage independence by letting them experience consequences. It helps them build resilience. It helps them learn from their mistakes, and it ultimately helps them make different decisions in the future. When we go in and bail them out from decisions they've made over and over again, they don't actually have the ouch that happens when we've made a mistake, and they don't learn from that ouch. And so it's important that we set healthy boundaries. They're not walls, they're just bridges to respect and to connection. And when we treat someone with more respect through healthy boundaries, they return that respect back. So understanding and adapting to their culture, their religious choices, their generational differences. Remember, they're not raised in the same time that you were raised. And so you need to be open to their perspective, their experiences, even when you disagree. It's really important that you're not saying, well, when I was a kid, blah, 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 because ultimately it doesn't matter. When you were a kid, it was different. When you were a kid, you weren't faced with, constant inundation of the social media and the phones in their hands all the time and the quick gathering of information. I mean, you just didn't have all of that to contend with, and the fast pace at which everything's going, economies that change, all of those things are different for them than they were for you. And so recognizing those shifts in culture are really important and trying to understand and meet them where they are. I see this become a problem in my practice the most when it happens with a religious change. So let's say you raised a child in a certain religious culture. Let's say you raised your child, in a Christian culture, and they decided they don't want to go that way anymore, and they would rather be more spiritual, and they don't want to go to church anymore. And that brings up a lot of fear in you. Recognizing that trying to pressure them into doing it your way is not going to drive them to the direction that you want. Recognizing where they are and their cultural or their religious choices are theirs to make. And again, back to keep the welcome mat out. Unconditional love and acceptance are always what we want. Otherwise, we lose the relationship. The other thing that's really important, and I see people struggle with this all the time, is relating to their significant other. You want to show up with respect for your adult child's partner choice. Avoid interfering in their relationships. Don't give them guidance or micromanagement on their choice. It's going to only alienate. And this isn't what you want. You want to be able to remain close to your child. And so who they love needs to become someone that you are interested in learning, because otherwise you will lose them. And that's a mistake that a lot of parents make. They don't like the choice of the partner that their child chooses, and then they lose their child. And that's really not what any of us want. So loving your child means loving who they love. So get curious, get open, become a support for them as well. And it's only going to help you and help enrich the relationship that you have with your child. Another thing that comes up often, and especially in this generation, because it's so expensive to go out on your own. It's a different time. People don't make as much money and costs are really high. So handling financial issues wisely. We want to be generous, but we want to set clear boundaries around money and support. We want to look at it's okay if you say, yes, I'm willing to help, but the money needs to go in this way. Or, yes, I'm willing to help, but I'm going to go ahead and pay that bill myself, because then I know what I am looking to help is in line with my values, and I can spend my money how I want to spend my money. So as a parent, you need to make sure you're clear. How do you want to help? What does help look like? And how do you want to volunteer those financial supports? And having clear conversations about that is important, because there's a real difference between a safety net and a hammock. You want to make sure that you know the difference, and that your habit to support doesn't enable your child from learning their own financial independence and responsibility. I talked a little bit about this with culture differences, but you really want to support their faith journey. Encourage their own spiritual growth, not forcing your own beliefs and your own desires onto them, because faith is a very personal choice, and supporting, not steering, is really necessary when it comes to looking at your child and their decisions and their growth. I know this is really hard because we love our kids so much, but we want to really leave a legacy of love. We want to focus on connection over control. We want to focus on understanding and support. And we want that to be our enduring legacy. We want our kids to look back at us and go, I'm sure some of the choices I made were really hard for my parents to watch, but they did a pretty good job of staying out of the way and letting me just be my own person and learn my own lessons. And so you want to think about, how do you want them to remember you when they're out of this phase, when they are done making this choice and they start to continue to mature and they make choices that maybe are more in line with what you'd hope for them. You want them to recognize how you showed up during that hard time was respectful, because what matters most is your love. And that is, of course, going to outlast every disagreement. And there's going to be plenty of disagreements, especially if we're offering unsolicited advice. So the ache and hope of this situation is real. We love our kids, and we don't stop loving them just because they grow up and they leave the nest. So maybe they're making choices that scare you. Maybe you're biting your tongue. Believe me, they know when you're biting your tongue. So you need to work on that in your internal work. And maybe even what they're doing really hurts you. Maybe they're struggling with addiction, or they're struggling in ways that are hurting them. And you're wondering if that silence kind of feels like abandonment. Well, here's something that I have learned, and I've had kids that have made all sorts of choices that I've been scared of. I've had kids that have struggled with addiction. I've had kids that have struggled in all kinds of areas. And here's what I've learned. Advice, even when it's loving, sounds like judgment. If you've been critical while they grew up, I know we were fairly critical parents, unfortunately, it lands wrong, even if you mean it with love. And so you want to make sure that you're showing up with love, and ask for a window of open. If you want to give some opinions, they need to invite that. And help, even when it's well-intentioned, can feel like mistrust. My youngest actually said that to me. He said, you jump in to help, and sometimes what I make up is that you don't think I can figure it out. And I was like, ouch, that's not the message I'm trying to send. What's really happening in me is I don't want things to hurt so bad, and so I want to help. But the truth is, that's not my journey to take. That's their journey. And that silence paired with presence says, I trust you. And so just sitting and listening with someone is really important. That welcome mat, your unconditional acceptance, this is the key that keeps them coming back. And that's what you want to do to make sure you're continuing the transition of that, transitioning from parent to friendship. So let me give you an example. Let's say your child loses their job and asks for help, and you want so badly to rescue, but you really need to pause. And you want to offer support, not solutions. Say things like, I believe you can do hard things. I know you're going to figure it out. That's the balance. It's validation and kindness and love without racing to rescue. And again, it's really hard, especially if you're impulsive and you're fast, like I am. I run into this all the time where my impulse is to race to rescue, and I need to really slow down so that I don't alienate and be unhealthy in the adult relationship. So let me give you some tools to stay close without smothering them. Because again, just because they want to leave the nest doesn't mean we really want them to. We don't want to lose them, right? So how do we stay close without overcrowding and over suffocating our kids? We want to practice true vulnerability. We want to share our fears and our hopes, not just our advice. You want to share with them. It's really hard not getting to see how they are every day once they've left, or hear how their days went, and be the first person that they reach out to when something went wrong. And that's hard, and it's scary, and it's sad. And so let them know that that's part of your transition. Be honest and open with them. Set healthy boundaries. Help in crises, but don't fund irresponsibility. If people are making choices that are not responsible, we don't have to step in. We can let them face their own consequences of their choices. Lead with curiosity. Ask questions. Listen deeply. Accept differences. And keep that welcome mat out. Your child needs to know that they belong no matter what, even if you don't agree with their choices. Remember, we lose our influence when we come in with judgment. And you do have influence. They have our voice in their ear. They know. They've lived with us their whole life, right? But you don't have control over how they interpret it and how they proceed with it. You have history, but you don't have any authority. And you have love, so much love. It could drown you, right? But your love alone doesn't determine the outcomes of their choices. And so this is where you're kind of recognizing these tenets from this book is a great idea. Remember, celebrate these small wins. This is a hard transition. Every time you let go, every time you stay steady and hold your tongue, every time you don't race to rescue, it's a sign that you're shifting and that you're growing. And find moments that make you smile. Celebrate their challenges with the way they show their resilience. Celebrate their moments of triumph with them. And that's really where you can remain in connection and remain steady and helpful, supportive character in their life that they will continue to want in their story if you approach it like this. So again, parenting adult children is hard. If your goal is to want to remain friends with your kids as they age like mine is, we're going to love them fiercely, but you have to let go of the control. You have to keep that welcome mat out. And the work is not in shaping them, but in staying steady, not fixing them, but being reachable and not controlling the story or the narrative, but remaining someone that they want in their story, even if it's not in the same role that you once played. So I know that this is hard. Believe me, I've been there. I still am there at times. And it's a challenge when you have to watch your heart walking around outside of your body for the rest of your life. It's hard. And we don't stop loving them so big just because they are on their own. And so I know you can do it. I know you can do hard things, and you can be brave and afraid at the very same time. So if this show resonated with you, please make sure to subscribe or leave a comment. Share it with someone that you know. I know that a lot of my friends are in this season, and these are conversations that we have. And hopefully this show helps with this challenge to keep us, strong and steady for this transition. You can do it. So again, until next time, don't forget to lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.